Lucky Lefty podcast. The ONORA boys are in the building, and as you can already see, Lucky Lefty, we got a heavy hitter with us today. Big bro, Howard Griffith, legend, Illinois, one of the best Emmy award winning from the Big Ten Network. Like, come on now. We're not here to shortchange my bro. All right.
Appreciate it. Checks in the mail.
Never that. Sure. We're here to talk Notre Dame, Jim Harbaugh, CFB this weekend, Penn State, Ohio State. We're ready to get to it. And of course, my brother is fresh off a trip back from the middle of nowhere where he did an incredible job calling that Sam Houston State, Florida International game.
Yeah.
Hey, Left, let me tell you something. Your color game is improving, bro. You're doing your thing. I just want you to know that. Because when you hit us with the he was trying to, instead of making the play, he was trying to save the day. I said, okay. I said, Left is out here spitting bars and rhyming on national TV on CBS Sports Network. But as always, we are brought to you by CFB Nation, presented by Twisted Tea, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, audio edibles each and every day. You already know, Left. Let them know. We spin it different.
That's right. We spin it different every time.
And spinning off the lefties is different. It's different.
Better hold on tight.
Yes, sir. Left. Let me tell you something, man. Out of all, because you've been to, what city is Sam Houston State in?
It's an hour outside of Houston. It's in Huntsville, Texas.
Huntsville, Texas. You've been to Huntsville,
Alabama.
Huntsville, Texas.
Yeah, exactly.
You've been to Huntsville, Texas. You've been to DeKalb, Illinois. We call the Northern Illinois game. You've been to Buffalo, called the Buffalo game.
Nashville
for that game. What was that?
Green, Kentucky.
Right. What's the best spot you've eaten at?
Man, Buffalo had the best wings for sure.
You went to Buffalo and got some buffalo wings.
Had to. It was on brand. But in Bowling Green, have you ever been to El Toro?
I've heard of it.
El Toro has this really good beef tenderloin pasta.
Mm.
It sets the world ablaze. It's definitely a top tier. I would recommend it every time. Because they had like a steakhouse too. I was next door, but couldn't get past that pasta. So if you're in Bowling Green, go to El Toro, get that beef tenderloin pasta.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. So let's get into it. I told my brother Howard Griffith that I have a question before we get into Notre Dame a little bit. I don't know whether I should shake my head or tip my cap at Iowa. I don't know. I don't know whether or not I should be shaking my head saying Kirk Ferentz for this to be going on as long as it's going on with this Iowa offense. This is outright ridiculous, man. What are you doing up there? But then they keep finding ways to win the Big Ten West. Like how are they doing this? I don't know where I should tip my cap to them or just shake my head like, dude, this is hard.
But the West isn't that great either. Wisconsin is not doing that well. Nebraska's
the whole thing is up for grabs.
Yeah, it's different than, like, for instance, Conference USA or the MAC, where at any point any of those teams can win. You got a new winner every year almost in those divisions because they're evenly talented. You get to these, the Big Ten West, it's the haves and have nots on an extreme level, and then mixed with the there's not a lot of special players in that division. If you look at the other side of the bracket, you got a bunch of first rounders, got a bunch of impact players in college football. Last year they had the number 2 quarterback in the draft, so it's drastic talent differences from the East and West in the Big Ten. And I think it'll figure itself out, with UCLA, USC coming, and how that changes recruitment of the Big Ten as well.
Big
I start seeing a lot more California kids in these Big Ten schools, I think.
We'll
because
see.
of the recruitment changing.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Big bro.
That's gonna be fascinating. But you look at this Iowa situation, man. It's as puzzling to me as it is anyone. And I'm in the middle of this thing every week, and it's like, ooh. But you hear people, coaches talk about, okay, win 2 of the 3 phases, right? Offense, defense, and special teams. Win 2 of them. It's like they're gonna win special teams. They do that. Their punter is like out of this world. Then defensively, they come up with turnovers. They're gonna stop the run. And then you look at the offense, and one of the things that happened this year, I mean, they've had injuries. Once again, they've lost their top 2. They lost their starting quarterback and their top 2 tight ends. So they just continue to have these injuries on that side. The offensive line has been better than they were the last couple of years, but it's still, you look and you marvel at just how they're able to win the football games the way they do. And you mentioned the West. It's wide open. You look at the quarterbacks. I think that's a big part of it because most of the quarterbacks in the West are not returning starters, or they're transferred in, and this is their first round. And you look at just what people are trying to do. Purdue trying to put in a new system. Wisconsin trying to put in a new system. Illinois, they just haven't gotten consistent enough play out of their quarterbacks. Minnesota has really been a disappointment this year because I thought they were a really good team. I think they still are. They just haven't been able to put it together. And they have a talented quarterback, Callie Manis. But when you look at it, they just do not have, the quarterbacks and quite honestly, the playmakers that you need to have to really take your program to the next level. I know they're trying to figure it out recruiting-wise, but this is about to be, whoever wins the West is going to be good for them this year, because when these next 4 teams, really, you put UCLA in, they're playing a lot better because they've got a good quarterback, good young quarterback. And, the other, but Washington and Oregon is going to lose their guys. But shoot, man, you got problems. Bo Nix will be out of there too. So these guys are coming. So where you stack, overall in the Big Ten, I've been saying it all year, it's going to take these athletic administrators to really, I think, do a reboot and really determine what you really truly expect out of your program and what you expect them to do year in and year out. Because it's about to become very difficult to get to the Big Ten championship with no divisions, because you're taking the top 2 teams, and I think we all can pretty much figure who those top 2 teams are going to be each and every year.
Do you think we see guys like Jack Swarbrick and Gene Smith getting out of Dodge? Is it because of the change they see coming over the horizon? And as athletic directors, they really, I don't want to have to make that decision, or I don't want to have to deal with that. There are a lot of athletic directors and presidents like getting out of Dodge with, the evolution of the expanded playoff, NIL. It's almost like they're trying to avoid, or they see disaster coming, and they're like, I don't even want to be here for that.
Yeah, I don't know if there's so much disaster coming, but when you talk about Gene and Jack, those are 2 guys that have been around the game a long time.
That's been at the big table for a long time.
And have always had a seat there. And, this is a never-ending job. And as you mentioned, where NIL is right now, that stuff still needs to be figured out. Just how you're going to handle ultimately the playoffs, how that's going to ultimately shake out. There are just so many things, I think, that are on the table of an AD right now that, these guys, they have teams of lawyers trying to figure stuff out, because it's just, so many different, opportunities out there, and so many different potential problems that are out there that they have to deal with. So I think when those guys got into the business, it was great. It was a lot easier. But now, I mean, there are a lot of challenges and a lot of issues. And, if you've had a great deal of success as an AD, this is an opportunity for you to walk away and And trust me, they're gonna get great consulting gigs if they don't have them already. So, don't feel sorry for those guys.
Hey, Left, it's almost like Gene and Jack are like, yo, when we came in the game, you know what I'm saying? Like record labels were giving away 6-figure, signing bonuses. You know what I'm saying? Like, you remember those days where rappers were getting $1 million to sign? Dude, those days are gone.
And the true freshman is walking in making more money than the athletic director.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you mentioned UCLA's quarterback. There's a lot of Notre Dame fans that sit there each weekend like, man, these dudes have our quarterback. Like they
pretty much.
They got our quarterback.
And it's interesting to see that where things are changing and just the type of person that you're going to have to be in that position. Because a guy like Jack, clearly his way of doing things isn't the standard of what's going to change in college football landscape. And I think it's interesting to see a guy like Pete Pravacqua being from the entertainment industry be the new lead for where this direction is going, which I think is helpful in some instances, maybe more so for the business side, figuring out future deals and partnerships through the TV, but all in streaming services and all the things that you can go through with there. Hopefully it equals more media access to Notre Dame, where we do things like Season With and different spinoff shows, just things that corral more of a network feel to Notre Dame, because I think we have enough content, resources, audience, enough to where we at some point don't need NBC, especially for what they're doing in integrating us with this Big Ten package and how it's kind of intertwining the attention a little bit, because you got low budget Big Ten games on there, but still we were the only thing rocking on NBC for quite some time. What are you trying to say? Nobody's watching Nebraska, Purdue, or Wisconsin, Minnesota. We're not watching that anymore. So the Big Ten only has a couple games a season that they're pulling the numbers that they're pulling, but throughout our season, I mean, we've had 5 primetime games back to back to back to back.
Yeah, they really have done phenomenal this year as far as TV ratings. Notre Dame,
Duke, USC, Ohio State. If Jack knew that was going to be like that, 5 primetime games against, and 3 out of 5 is top 25 teams. Wait, hold on. Louisville was top 25. Duke was top 25.
USC top 25, and Ohio
State. So, hey, we definitely had the schedule that we had the right things going on. Marcus Freeman could punch a ticket to the college football playoffs already.
Yeah, but I bet you, looking back, Marcus Freeman would have preferred to not play those 4 in a row.
We didn't know Louisville and Duke was going to be that good, but good grief. Because potentially you got Clemson, who, is always a challenge going in, whatever. But that's 6 games that, are probably the hardest schedule of anybody. If you step back in hindsight, the schedule,
I think it's 6th in the nation right now.
And Georgia is far from that. And, and they're going through their ups and downs.
What do we say? Notre Dame went through it. Every team has a portion of their schedule that gets tough.
I don't know if any team in the country has faced a schedule like this. 6 potential primetime games.
Well, they're
not
ranked
separated
in strength of schedule. So it's 5 teams that, according to the index, have tougher schedules than Notre Dame. I have to see what those 5 teams are, but I agree.
We're definitely the more famous of even the teams that are, because you got to think these teams are probably like the teams that need money, so they playing like every powerhouse team you could play just to get the little $1 million or so. So it could be like a Montana State or something. It could be hardest schedule ever. They play every top 5 team around.
But look at USC the next 4 weeks. Like we talked about
tough schedule,
USC for the next 4 weeks, and Oregon for the next, and do the round robin that's about to happen in the Pac-12. Like that
shakes out.
Yeah, that's tough, man.
But ours is still difficult because we're traveling. I can't. Yeah, we got to give a lot of credit to what Marcus Freeman is facing. Probably one of the toughest schedules, tougher than anything Brian Kelly's had to face in a 10-year bout that he's had. If you just think about the not only the teams, but the players we facing the number one receiver in the country. Well, we played two of the top 10 receivers this year.
Yeah, Ohio State, 2 first-round wide receivers.
Defensive, the running back, Trevion
Henderson. Then you go to Riley Leonard, who might be a first-round
pick. A Heisman guy.
Or he might end up being a transfer to South Bend. You never know.
Oh my God, we bring Riley Leonard.
Y'all gonna have to hit the portal now.
But
yeah, absolutely you do.
But for a star receiver, like get us an AJ Mitchell.
I think they did it last year. Things worked out. There's going to be spots that you want to fill, and you got to fill them, and that's the fastest way to fill them.
How has the transfer portal helped us so far?
Well, I think
because the guys that we've had come in some instances, could argue that they were liabilities in the big games.
Well, you chose them, right? I said you got to use the portal, right?
That's right. That's right.
As long as you go get the right one that's gonna fit, then you're good. And I think that's part of it. And I know there's some other things they got to take care of with it as well, away from the field. But I think if you want to turn the program around, if you're there, and Notre Dame's always gonna be there. Now it's about, okay, how do you get over the hump, right? Because one of the things I admire about Notre Dame is like it's all or nothing, right? And to be able to play under that kind of pressure week in and week out, and just exist in it even during the off season, a lot has to be said, not only about the coaching staff but the players in the program, obviously. So now with the portal, you can all of a sudden plug and play. You need a right guard. Here's one. You need a running back. We got one of those over here. You need a wide receiver. So there are people. You need a quarterback. There are people out there that you can go get. Now you got to make sure you get the right one. It's just like recruiting. Half of them don't work out anyway. But that's just part of it. But as long as you're trying to put yourself in a position to do it, then you're going to be fine.
Lucky Lefty Podcast, the ONORA boys with a big bro, Howard Griffith, right here at CFB Nation, presented by Twisted Tea. Ohio State exhaled after they left South Bend. They exhaled because you could listen to their players in a post game like, "Hey man, that offensive line was the best offensive line we faced in a long time. Like, yeah, we got away with one. We got out of here with a victory." And then all of a sudden, that struggling offense that had been struggling up until Notre Dame and even through that game just seems like they flourished. They figured it out. And they figured it out with Trevion being hurt, their top 2 running backs being hurt, injuries along the offensive line, and they just, look, all right, that Notre Dame game, like that was pretty much either a wake-up call or it was like, okay, we got through that part, because maybe they were looking forward to Notre Dame. Maybe that was the big game they were looking forward to. They really didn't respect the other teams. And once they got through Notre Dame, it seems like this Ohio State offense has really started to open up and be more like what people expected, even with the new quarterback.
Yeah, I think they still got a lot of questions. Even going into this week, for me, it's been Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State since the summer. That's the way I've had them.
Penn State over Ohio.
I've had Penn State over Ohio State. Now, I'm not saying that Ohio State's not going to win the game this weekend. I'm not saying that. Not yet. But Ohio State has so many questions. Right? And to me, they're not running the ball very well. Their running backs are hurt. They were struggling to get the ball to the receivers downfield. And part of that is, McCord stepping in as the first-time starter. You're going to have those growing pains. And I tell people all the time, C.J. Stroud struggled. Justin Fields struggled. All Dwayne Haskins, they all struggled, through the spring and the first part of the season. Now, where a lot of people are excited, the Ohio State fans are, was the last drive against Notre Dame. Now, yeah, they had some help, obviously, at the end, playing with 10 people, but that's another discussion. But you saw him make some plays to really, it was the tight end that was able to come up with some big plays to keep things moving, Stover. And he's really been one of the big catalysts to, really keep things going. He's been that safety blanket. And yeah, they try to go deep, and you throw up a 50-50 ball to Harrison, and, most times if you're not playing against one of the best corners, in the country, he's going to make the play. It's going to be a back and forth all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think they still have questions. Ibuka may not play this weekend. Henderson may not play this week. They may be down 3 running backs this week. So I think it's still a lot of things they have to do defensively. And I think this is part of just being spoiled watching Ohio State, right? When you go Bosa, Chase Young, man, you get spoiled. And who benefits from that? The back end. They were sending first round draft picks, top 10 picks coming out of that secondary year after year during that stretch. And then all of a sudden they couldn't play defense, giving up big plays. Jim Knowles doing this, doing that. It's like, just so many questions have been out there. Now, they've addressed a lot of those things this year. But I think this week, is just another step in where they have to go to, prove it. And maybe that's what they need to do, really. Because there's really no great teams, I don't think, out there. And I think what we're seeing is if you're looking at Ohio State and you're accustomed to what they normally look like, they don't look like that. Alabama fans saying the same thing, right? They're like, well, what's going on? So, but there are other teams that are coming up that are explosive, that are making plays when you look at the guys out west. And Ohio State's just not there just yet, but we're going to find out. And I think, to me, that's the biggest thing about this weekend between Penn. You get to find out. Obviously a big win they got in Notre Dame and South Bend. That was huge for them. Can they continue to build on that, beating James Franklin? And Franklin has been close in these games. I mean, there's a lot riding on the line here for James Franklin and Penn State.
I told someone earlier today that the most impressive in this run, I expected them to get blown out last year. At home. I'm like, oh, CJ, they're going to go in there and take care of business. Penn State having that fourth quarter lead, I was like, and scoring points.
Yeah.
I said, oh, wait a minute. And then, JT makes a play like he made against Notre Dame. He made the 2 biggest defensive plays in the fourth quarter for Ohio State. And that's what you need. Your big players have to make plays in big games, man. Like, you can talk about who surrounds them. JT wasn't worried about the linebackers and the defensive backs. He took it upon himself when Notre Dame was trying to run the clock out. Hey, 2 back-to-back plays. I'm about to make a play. This is why I'm a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. And this is the first year you might not pick Penn State, but even going on the road, I look at Caleb King and the DBs being able to do what Notre Dame did, which is line up, double Marvin Harrison every now and then, and single coverage on everybody else, and loose that front 7. Because they got some dogs at linebacker. Penn State, bro, they got some dudes that can come after the quarterback left.
No, I know they do. They do. Every year they do.
They can come get you. So I'm very interested in seeing how that offensive line with transfers to Ohio State, even at home, I think James Franklin is walking in there with a squad.
But the coaching always fails them.
Yeah, but this might be the first time that he knows. This might be the first time that he knows.
They should have won with Saquon Barkley.
Yeah. They've been there. They
had Micah and Saquon during that time, and the receiver Robinson or what was the name? One of the names, but it's the coaching that always comes.
They had some coaching. They had some issues, but I think Manny Diaz is going to bring pressure I think he's pressuring close to 50% of the time, if not over 50%. He's coming with it, and one of the things that we've seen is that sometimes that offensive line is all it takes is a split second, and Abdul Carter's by you, Chop Robinson's by you. I mean, these guys, they got some guys that can get after the quarterback, and if they are not on top of their game, on top of their reads and stuff, they're gonna have some serious problems. And this is gonna be one of those games. But I think you look at Penn State, all the talk has been the lack of explosion in the passing game, and the lack of the explosive runs that they've had in the past in the run game. I don't think they've had a run over their longest run has been 19 yards. And at this point last year they probably had 25. So it's both teams have some challenges, and I think that's why you kind of look at Ohio State and you look at the way Ryan Day is getting after things, and he's calling the plays now, and you kind of have to give the edge to Ohio State, but I don't think anybody would be shocked if Penn State was able to come out of there with a victory.
Penn State also hasn't played anybody like Ohio State has.
No doubt.
Oh, that's
going to play great into the adversity and the clutch moments of that game. I don't think Penn State has arrived to that point, but I think if you put them in the pool of general college football teams, they should be able to perform well. But against a team that's been there, I mean, we've taken them literally to the distance. I think it adds a lot of character to a team like that in games that are down the line for them, because they can recall on that moment in time where they outperformed a better team. I think we're a better team than what Penn State can provide rolling out there in just the situation. So I think it will be interesting. It'll definitely be a close one. I'll be more surprised that it's a situation where Penn State is leading in the game. I think it'll be something where Ohio State will have to lose this game, not so much Penn State beating them in this instance.
You think about this real quick, this is what's interesting, right? Marvin Harrison went for I think 10 for $185 last year. He lit him up, but it was still close. Right? The game was still close until the end, and I think this is where you talk about obviously Ohio State going on the road, been battle tested. They've been in that situation. Penn State hasn't. The only thing I will say is that when they practice and they spend a lot of time, whether it's spring, whether it's summer, and even during the season, ones versus ones for that very reason. They're not going to see, that O-line is not going to see a better pass rush than they get from the guys that are already in that locker room. So if they have tuned themselves properly, you would think they'd be able to manage that. But still, you're going into a hostile environment. You are. And the last thing you want to do is be one of the guys that's sitting, okay, we're in the middle of it, and then all of a sudden something goes wrong. That one play happens, and then all of a sudden, okay, here we go. And I don't think that's the type of team they have this year, but still, you just never know. Ohio State's been there. They've been around this thing. They understand it. The pressure, think about the pressure that's on Ryan Day, right? I mean, this dude doesn't do anything but win games, but he loses a couple to Michigan, and all of a sudden you got problems, right? You're not good enough. We need a better coach. It's like, who are you getting?
You got that John Cooperitis going on.
It's like, what do you got going? So, again, I think it's going to shape up to be a good one. I'm really looking forward to it. So we'll just have to see how it plays out.
Let's go ahead and transition over to the team you have at the top of the Big Ten. And if I'm Jim Harbaugh, bro, I'm about tired of the NCAA. Collins Station, someone that works for the Michigan program, buying tickets, scouting, stealing signs, The video that went viral yesterday with Greg Schiano at halftime of the Michigan Rutgers game, pretty much saying something's going on, and they're putting it out there. And I've talked to a lot of coaches and NFL players in the last 24 hours, man, and they're like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, if you're not cheating and trying to steal signs, then you ain't doing your job. Like, that's par for the course. But like you said, the rule in the Big Ten was put in because of the haves and the have-nots. Yeah. And at this point, Jim Harbaugh is the next head coach of the Chicago Bears. I'm just putting it out there right now. Like,
you know, it's
I don't think our GM would take that though.
I mean, the GM was just left the Big Ten. Why wouldn't he?
Well,
the president.
The president.
Yeah.
I think that's a hard one. Listen, I think, you know, we talk about, it's a reason that they have 3 people signaling signs. It's a reason you have to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if there's a 21-year-old that's really bright that's sitting over there on the sideline watching you signal. There's another, and to me, quarterbacks, they got this thing figured out. When they talk about signaling signs in, they break each other's signs all the time.
That's why they need to just move it to the mic and the helmet. I mean, it's the only thing. They even got the helmets now for the kids that are deaf, that they look that little computer chip in there where they can read the play on there. I mean, the helmets are crazy these days, especially the ones with the air conditioning in them. I mean, they got something of everything. So I don't understand why, if this is an obvious cheating issue, because as gamesmanship, you're going to find ways to win at any cost. Why not just make it like the NFL and just put that mics in the helmets? I mean, I think that's probably the clearest thing you can do in terms of just being straightforward competition, because what would be the reason not to have it?
Yeah, I don't think there would be a good reason outside of financially. And that's not a good reason anymore.
Not with kids getting paid what they getting paid.
No, not anymore. So, you know, listen, if things stay the way they are, right, people are gonna look. That's what they do. It's par for the course. So don't, you know, I get it with rules and all of that stuff, but you know, you Jim Harbaugh, you know, it's just one of those things. It's just one thing after the other, and I do think it is. Some of it is that people hate Michigan. You either love them or hate them, right? Notre Dame gets that same thing. You either love them or hate them. And that's why when you put them on television, the numbers are crazy. And when they're good,
nobody was saying this about Michigan when they was trash. Jim Harbaugh been there the whole time. No. Nobody said nothing about no stealing no signals.
But that's, you know, and man, this stuff goes on. So I don't really want to hear about all the whining about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and you pretty much, like you said, it's been Ohio State for a long time in the Big Ten. Like, that was it. Michigan was, even when Michigan would have a year where they could get there, Ohio State would smack them right back down. And now, because Michigan just hasn't just beat Ohio State, they have smacked Ohio State 2 straight years. And the game is in Ann Arbor this year. So, you know, people might be really upset because Michigan might be taking Ohio State's place in the Big Ten as that standard. Yeah. And people don't like that.
I mean, how many years does it take? How many years would it be? 3 years it takes to replace them? I mean, Ohio State's been whooping up on them for 10 plus years.
Facts.
So I don't know about a replacement, but Ryan Day not beating them does add to the effect of something's wrong.
If the Ohio State coach is on the hot seat, if he loses to Michigan again, that's a problem. That's a problem. That is a shift. It's a shift taking place.
The shifts happen.
Yeah,
the shifts already happened. And the other thing is they're playing the game. They're playing the game differently the way everybody else is playing it. You know, Penn State is built to go against Ohio State. They're both built similarly. they're built to play against the Oregons and the Washingtons. Although when I watched that Oregon-Washington game last week, I'm like, these dudes playing a different game right now. That thing was going up and down the field. But, Michigan is just playing it differently. And, it's like I said, when they're rolling, this is a tough team to beat. And a lot of people are upset about it. And, it's interesting that that's we're hearing about all of this stuff. And I get it. It happens all the time. It does. It happens more than I think people are willing to admit that it happens. Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and the Notre Dame podcast. So I guess we'll talk a little Notre Dame. The natives, they're getting a little restless. Second year. You know what? Let's kick the door down left. That's what we do. We spin it different. We can have, if people don't like the conversation, that's fine. Hey, I'm going to go ahead across the landscape of college football amongst former players, regardless of what school they played for. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of people that come from the same culture that we come from that are pulling for Marcus Freeman. I don't think people understand that. Like, it's a lot of people that might have graduated from an SEC school that work in the same industry as us or are doing whatever they want to do. It's a lot of people pulling for Marcus Freeman. Like, they understand the gravitas being at Notre Dame and him becoming successful and how it can impact certain things down the line. Like, let's just be honest about it. Now, I put it out front when they hired him. I said it on this podcast. I said it on other podcasts. Hey, man, if you're not going to give him what he needs, don't hire him. If you're going to half step, don't put that dude.
Yeah, he shouldn't take it if that's how they doing it.
Well, you don't turn down your first job. I can't even front. Not, I don't know what his salary is, but you're not turning down millions.
And they tell you, hey, we're going to handcuff you your whole time. We're going to handcuff you, but you can take it.
Tommy Reese was hired before he was hired. He was already handcuffed.
That's what I'm saying. He didn't have to. He would have been like, whoa, that would have red flag number one.
All right, now I don't know if he could have said, "Oh," I don't know if he had that much leverage left. Come on,
you know better than that.
We're keeping it a buck now. I don't know if he had that much leverage. So
he had to have said it to him. Just said what he had said to his wife at home. Once he had heard the news, he was like, "I can't believe they hired this Tommy guy already." Like, I thought we was. But it's something that Marcus Freeman, which we talked about, has only gotten worse because from then it became now you got to say these speeches I'm writing for you. Now you got to take these unnecessary falls on the floor.
They just gave him a couple of bullet points left. I don't think they wrote the whole speech for him.
Well, he embellished on it. It sounded like a speech. He's like, you took the bullet points, made them paragraphs.
I just want to know, knowing the obstacles that have been there, how is he viewed? The job he's been able to do to this point. Like, the Louisville game is something that, that's tough. I can't. Ohio State game, true story, man, because Malik and I, we went to the Ohio State game. And as soon as they scored, I looked at Malik and I said, man, get me out of here. Just get me out, get me away from this stadium, this city. Like, I was done. Not losing like that. Like, if we lose because you're the better team, all right, cool. I can deal with that. If Marv comes out and goes 7 for like 130 and 2 tuds, and I'm like, okay, I can rock with that. I can't. Losing like that, oh, man, that hurt. But even in the midst of that, man, I just have this feeling that, number one, he's going to get the job done. Number one, because he will be the first head coach that does not have the pressure to go undefeated in order to get to the playoff, which I think will be huge.
That would be ending after this year, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm. Start next year, the expanded playoff. I think he's going to succeed. And to this point, knowing the obstacles he's had to deal with, I'm cool with the job he's done. That's just me.
Cool or happy with it?
I said cool. I didn't say I was shouting in the pool. I mean, at the front of the church. I didn't say that. But because I have an understanding, the Ludwig situation, the Shepard situation, and him ended up in Washington instead of ended up in I understand the obstacles, right? So,
they're unique obstacles, though. I don't remember the last time hearing a head coach at a P5 school like Notre Dame not be able to secure coaches they're interviewing. They're taking in interviews for guys to level up. It's not like for instance, Alabama took Tommy seamlessly. Nick Saban didn't travel around the country scouring for offensive coordinators all around the world just to hire somebody in-house. Nick Saban was at his lake house.
He wasn't even on campus, bro.
Wasn't even on campus. Didn't even greet Tommy.
Zoom call.
He had the little recruiting girls show Tommy around like he was a recruit. Marcus Freeman is by himself traveling the world, going to Kansas and Florida. He went all around the country. News is traveling with him. Marcus Freeman's over here interviewing this guy. Marcus Freeman's traveling down there interviewing that guy. And then on the bottom of the ticker is, we just didn't come up with anything. What? With all the money flowing and things changing in college football, especially how coaches rotate like musical chairs, now all of a sudden we just can't secure a coach?
It was the buyout, Left. The buyout was too much, Left.
Yes, I don't understand that.
They want to be good stewards, Left.
How much was Tommy's buyout?
I'm sure Notre Dame got a nice little check.
If we so willing to let coaches get bought out, why can't we buy coaches out? I have never done. It's happened in the same year.
Matter of fact, just take the Tommy buyout.
It just handed right on. So it's really no excuse at this point. We done broke it down to what is really going on.
So here's what I think, and I without a doubt think Marcus is going to be successful there.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the hardest things, and I had this conversation with him, is when to say no. He has to learn how to say no.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that he's fully, because I think it's one thing to be a first-time head coach and you at Kent State.
Right.
Bro, this dude is a first-time head coach at, I don't even know what to call it. An unbelievable elite program. I don't even know how to say.
Winning the lottery. We won the lottery of coaching, literally.
You don't see that happen. So I think the maturation process of him becoming this coach is going to be a process because he has to go through that. I mean, you bring up Nick Saban because Nick Saban has proven to everybody this is what I can do and this is how I do it. But he also learned he had some other stops along the way. And yeah, you can be the associate head coach, you can be whatever you want to, but until you are sitting in that corner office by yourself, because when you just the linebacker coach, you're cool with everybody. Everybody's your buddy, right? And as you become that coordinator, you got more people that are answering to you, and now all of a sudden you're the head coach. Now you got everybody in the building, plus the people across campus and donors that are putting up a lot of money, and you end up being stretched thin. And now with NIL, this thing it's crazy now. The time constraints, because this past tour we had this summer, every last coach was like, I cannot believe how much time I'm spending on NIL.
Mm.
Raising money used to be they do their little their caravans in the summer or in the spring,
And a little
but they didn't
banquet
have
at the end
anything
of
else
it.
to do.
Yeah.
Right now, they're raising money 24 hours a day because that donor is sitting there saying, well, you know, we need these new facilities. They're saying we need the new facilities. We want to do this locker room. That donor is like, well, nah, I'd rather put the money toward this quarterback or this tight end or this running back.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole thing is just, you know, it's a process, man. And you know, there was a time probably when Marcus took the job, his face was probably plastered all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Probably that first week, couple weeks, because it was such an historic hire and he had done something that hadn't been done. And you're thrust into that whirlwind, and all you want to do is coach. You want to coach. So I just think it's going to be a process, and I think it's always going to be important for him to make sure the people that are in the building, the people that are on his staff are always there supporting him and not trying to make that next move, because that can become a real problem when you have some other people on the staff that are trying to position themselves for your job or other jobs that are out there.
Yeah, I do believe Marcus Freeman can get it done. It's just a matter of how much does the university allow him the time to get done. I mean, you know, I think, you know, they've laid out quite a challenge to be able to have as many restrictions, not bending too much towards what NIL is allocating for these guys. And then also at the fact that, like we talked about, on just keeping it real. I mean, you know, Marcus Freeman, first year head coach, in a position where, you know, you're losing the guy that hired you in Jack Swarbrick. This almost a clean slate for a guy of Pete Pravacqua, who is coming from a background where he's like, listen, if it doesn't start off hot, I could just clean slate of everybody. And I think it is a delicate position for a guy like Marcus Freeman, who's in most cases doing everything you can.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you do everything you can, it don't work out. It's not necessarily his fault how things you know, turn out, but it also is required of the other side to provide him all the resources needed to be successful. And we've seen in the short off seasons that he's had, they haven't been able to bring what many will believe if we provided Marcus Freeman with, we would have been off a lot stronger, not only in recruiting, we probably would have sealed the deal on a lot of different guys that, you know, Marcus Freeman had in that position. I mean, we had Keon Keeley in the building. We had Richard Young. We had Dante on the hook. We had Dylan Edwards coming. You know, a lot of what I think affected those guys leaving are the same things that Marcus Freeman is banging on the administrator's desk for to change, whether it be requirements of admission, something from the NIL and that collective, or, you know, something that, you know, could push us over the edge, which I think Marcus Freeman knows what it's going to take to get us over that. But if we're not willing to meet him somewhere in the middle, I think it just becomes, you can only do so much before, you know, you turn into the Brian Kelly mode of, let's just go golfing. I mean, we're going to hit these quotas. We're going to hit these, you know, we're going to make it seem like we're working hard. And then, you know, if I'm secured after getting 10 wins a year and I ain't going nowhere, then hey, you know, championship is just, we might get it, we might not. And I don't want Marcus Freeman to fall into that. Yeah. And because that's just, there's no win from that. You know, you're not gaining anything more than what we've already had, which I think is the hard part of him accepting the job, is that we've had 10 years of consistent mediocrity in a lot of instances, only because with none of them years with all that consistency has made a championship out of it. Now, if he had a championship sprinkled in there, one or two in there, then it'd be the greatest Notre Dame coach ever. But Marcus Freeman can't even get that no more. He's got to be the greatest ever if he wants to stay anything longer than 5 years, in my opinion. He's got to come with a championship.
Yeah, because, you know, as a head coach, he has to learn how to be a head coach. Like, I expected him to make some mistakes and evolve as a head coach in game and all of that. One thing I know for sure, Marcus Freeman can get his team ready, especially for big games. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's a big game they went into where I can just flat out say they weren't ready. Unfortunately, we really didn't consider Louisville that big a game.
But how much does the administration value that, getting the team ready to play?
I'm just saying, if that's something he came to the table with, that's something he came to the table with. Now, the other stuff, the mistakes, the penalties, the Marshall game, the Stanford game, the Louisville. Okay. I think the team and the program, as they accumulate more talent, which they're doing, especially at the skill positions, right? In 24, they have a top 50 quarterback coming. In 25, they've already signed a top 50 quarterback. He's changed the narrative in the quarterback room in Notre Dame.
Already.
You haven't had that since you, Ev, and Deshaun. Yeah. That quarterback room hasn't been like that since you, Ev, and Deshaun. It hasn't. So now the talent is there. So now you answer that. This wide receiver core that people are complaining about, they're true freshmen that have been thrown into a situation where they have to be the number one option and the number two. And that wasn't the plan.
The game plan. It wasn't the game.
Your top returner receiver transferred to Ohio State. Deion Colesy was supposed to be a veteran. He's injured once again. Jaden Thomas, he's been injured. So, and then you got Chris Tyree trying to learn the position. Like, it's a tough situation. I'm sure it's impacted the offensive line, Sam Hartman. But, hey, when you're an elite program, like Big Bro said, Ohio State might be going into this Penn State game without their top 3 running backs and the number 2 wide receiver. Well, guess what? Brandon Ennis and Carnell Tate wait.
And they nice, too.
That's what. And I bet you they nice. Brandon Ennis had his first touchdown last week. So all of that, if you're an elite program, all of that, this guy isn't playing, that guy isn't playing, this guy transferred. Nah. You call yourself an elite program, next man up.
It's just also unfortunate, though, that Marcus Freeman's losses are just so glaring. This guy on your team that on the basketball team or something, it's just like anything he does, you're just like, man, you just can't get it right. But he may miss a shot like everybody else in the team, but the shot he missed is just so like memorable. And I think that's just the unfortunate losses Marcus has taken so early have been so memorable for a lot of people that, he can't just lose a game and we move on. We lose Ohio State, we got to talk about it going into the next week and the week after and the week after. It's like they're not gonna let him move on and grow in that process of learning. So it's just a tough position. I mean, hell, after the Oklahoma State game, he took over the team, not went into the season with the team, took over another man's team, and they blaming him outright. Oh, he should have did this, should have did that. So if you dealing with that, and you can't even get your off season right yet, it just shows that you're in a peculiar position that if you go take in my opinion, if Jack gonna take the hire of Marcus Freeman, go all in on it. I know because right now it looks like you was half-hearted and you was more convinced by the people to hire him outside of it being, okay, we're gonna bring this guy in. He's not gonna even coach his last team's bowl game, and we got him so locked up and so secure and wanting to get started early and fresh. I don't know if Marcus Freeman can consider himself having a fresh start. That wasn't a fresh start. It was more of a, all right, we taking you from fries and putting you on the register. That's what it felt.
No, he ain't go from fries to the register. He went from fries to owning like 150.
50 of them, right.
150 franchises. We got places all over the world. But I will say this, and this is the part, and I mentioned we were talking about earlier when we talked about the West, and administrators really having to take account of what they expect, what their expectations are going to be. I mean, it doesn't change at the top programs either. The administration has to understand what it takes in nowadays football to compete. I don't care about what happened 10 years ago. That's not what's happening today. And if you want to be in this game, because they can say what they want to, it's all about dollars and cents. right? It's all about dollars. If you want to be in this thing and you're saying we need to win a championship, then you have to give your people the resources to win championships. And I know people throw Alabama out there. I do too, but they've got 16, I think it's 16.
They got the
sports down there.
resources. Oh yeah.
16 sports that football takes care of. And by the way, some of those 16 non-revenue sports do just fine. But so they're willing to throw all the money in the world because they've seen championships.
Yeah, they probably added some sports because they had so much money from
they've
football.
Taken time to get there, right? It's taken time to get there, or for him to get there. You talk about being a flash in the pan. You want to be able to sustain this thing and build it. The last thing that should be on administrators' minds at Notre Dame is trying to even remotely think about how do you change gears. Because you mentioned it when you started, right? You said there are a lot more people that are pulling for Marcus Freeman
than the standard first-year coach. Yeah, for sure.
They're pulling for Marcus Freeman, and by the way, Notre Dame football too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's more like Marcus Freeman. We want him to succeed as a black man, out here. Exactly. And then, you coach at Notre Dame too. That's just, you just killing it.
I don't like Notre Dame, but
yeah.
I want that brother to do good, whatever he's doing.
But I think that's just the process. I think he's got to go through this process. I tell you this, he'll never find himself in the position he found himself last season. No, last off season. That'll never happen again.
But flip side, I think if he got offered, let's say Michigan State said $100 million, we take care of you up here at Michigan State. I think the blueprint of what he was able to do at Notre Dame would be supported more at a school with a fresh start like that. I don't think Michigan State wouldn't say no to Marcus Freeman. Marcus Freeman said, "I want,
hey, bro,
I want a shower in my coach's office and a plane always full." Michigan State would oblige that, no question.
I when you brought it up in our conversation, Left, I was shaking my head like. Then the more I thought about it, I was like, if I was Michigan State, you darn right I would throw the bag.
I would throw the bag.
You darn right. All the obstacles he's had to deal with in the first 2 years, you darn right. I would
make it so easy for him,
man.
And we need a coach something to shake up the Big Ten. He'll be the most popular coach in the Big Ten over Ryan Day.
And they're out.
No restrictions.
They're out from under the previous contract with the previous coach too. Oh yeah. Here's your 10 mil.
Hey, here's your 10 mil. We just transferred accounts. We just wired it from one account to the other.
Hey,
I'm telling you, it's opportunities out there. Brian Kelly took that route.
Mm-hmm. After running,
I just look. Of course, because I was like, Marcus just said. I think Marcus is committed to the vision. You know what I'm saying? Wants to be successful at Notre Dame, and with the expanded playoff, I think, Marcus is all bought. He's bought in.
He's bought in.
He's all in. He's bought in. I'm just speaking from the standpoint.
It can happen.
If I'm that administration, you better believe.
That's a smart play. If I'm Michigan State, that's a smart play. Go get, just like we told Under Armour that they need to release that clothing line.
The Marcus Freeman
they did it a little late. They still did it though. They still did it. But the benefits, I think, but Notre Dame needs to be aware of that. Pete Bravacco needs to be aware of that. Because if we keep denying this, brother, coaches, access to things, always putting restriction on recruitment, that would tire anybody out. Because then if we mess around and have another 9-8 win season, we're going to say it's his fault. Mm-hmm. We're going to be like, you're not bringing in the guys. You're not winning the games in the coaching situation. Now it's going to affect your coaching.
Yeah. Because
you don't feel like you can do anything to change it into the next season. So it's an avalanche effect, I do think. But for a guy that's committed as Marcus, he's more committed than anybody else.
Yeah,
I think that's what is getting everybody sold on is that he's all in. He ain't just complaining. He ain't even complaining. He's just like, I'm doing this. I know it's rough. I'm following the sword of everything that happens.
Which is. You look at where he's been and who he's Luke Fickell is his guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, they even had a lot of conversations and I think it's just a part of, man, you just got to continue to grow through this thing, man. And It's never easy. And it gets, like I said, I mean, that seat, that corner office gets real lonely. You think it's a popular place to be. Ain't nobody want to be in the corner office.
No.
You got to go, hey, Marcus Freeman called, you got to go see him. Oh, shoot. Right? Oh, shoot. Well, hell, he's getting called to offices too. He's getting asked to do a bunch of stuff too. Right. It's just not about, there's just not about his football team. And that's the part where he's growing and will continue to grow as a head coach. But going like with Michigan State, first of all, you call all the people that you know that you can't get. Yeah. That's the first thing you do. You call everybody and they got to tell you no. Yeah. Or in this day and age, you just work through agents. Yeah. So,
look, let me tell you something. I'll take it a step further as we get ready to transition and get out of here. Let that cat Ryan Day lose one more big game against Michigan. I already know Ohio State. I already know if they replacing Ryan Day. Oh, you already know the first call. You already know the direction they're going in. His best friend already went back to be the linebacker coach. Left Notre Dame. It's like, yo, I hope the administration wakes up like, hey, we have a really good asset here, man.
That's a tremendous asset.
We got a man. And we might want to think about treating him a little bit better or doing things a little bit different to help him out. Or, hey, somebody will throw the bag at him in the next year or two.
Yeah, you can't. It's no longer business as usual.
No.
And I think whether it's someone in there to renegotiate TV contracts, whether it's I don't think that you can sit back as an administrator now, or particularly right now at Notre Dame, and say, well, we used to do it this way. Mm-hmm. That old way of thinking, and that's not to say that that's the way they're thinking. I'm just, talking out loud. Because what happens with former players, right? They say, oh, yeah, we used to do that. These guys don't do it. They don't do half the stuff we did. They don't work hard. They don't do this. And it's like, dude, come on, man. You're not half the athlete these dudes are right now. What are you talking about, right? Oh, we'd mop the floor. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. But you can't, just because something happened a certain way doesn't mean that there's not change. You can't evolve. You have to be able to evolve to be successful. That's why, I mean, it's crazy as you look at Colorado and what they've been able to do. And I mean, Rick George, the athletic director, he was the recruiting coordinator when I was at Illinois, the assistant. I mean, he was in a position where, I mean, people weren't happy with the job he was doing. Mm-hmm. And he was not in the NIL, nothing to do with it. And then he decides, or they figure it out, he and Deion get together, right? And what it's done for that program, it's unbelievable, right? I mean, the place is sold out. Now you can argue about how it's done, but they made a shift in what they have been doing in the previous years. It was not working. And now all of a sudden they couldn't pay for the advertising that they've gotten this year. I'm sure they've had to hire, more people in the admissions office to go through all the applications that are coming through that place right now. Mm-hmm. So, you got to continue to evolve. And that's what happens. And the only time that really happens is when you're used to winning, when you're winning championships and you do things certain ways, right? You can get stuck in that. And I think Michigan, to a certain extent, got stuck into, the way we used to do things back in the day, right? They were upset with Rich Rodriguez when he came in. They couldn't stand it because he was throwing the ball all over the place. But I can tell you, had Rich Rod, just from football standpoint, if they kept Rich Rod in place, man, please, there wouldn't have been a dip, right? Because he was just playing a different game. And this conference was used to, and that was changed, but there was too big of a change that they didn't want to take. as a fan base and an administration. So, it's just about being able to evolve, and I think they will. They're going to have to, because when you've got a coach, to me, of Marcus's caliber, and he's nowhere reached his ceiling as a coach. He's not. I don't think he's even close, because he's just continuing to get better each week. That you've got to make sure that person is supported in every way he can. They're given everything that they need to be successful, to get you what you want. You want to be in the national championship game? Then make sure that he or she has all the resources that they need to get you there. And it's as simple as that. And there are enough bright kids out here that play at an unbelievable level.
Yes.
That it should never be a question of whether or not we can get a kid in school, because there are enough of them out here. And if you're doing the things and he has the resources he needs to, and NIL is going to be a big part of that, you got to give it to him. But in saying that, Ohio State is losing kids to NIL. Oregon is losing kids to NIL.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a problem everywhere.
Yeah. Hey, look, you and I said this the last time. we have to get to the point as a program. If it's a 5-star kid in Chicago, it's not even a race.
Yeah.
It's no question where he's going. He's going to South Bend. And the fact that there was one sitting on the west side and ended up at another school, that's not a good look.
No.
I don't know what the tipping point was, but hey, I'm just saying.
I would tell you that, and I'll bring up Urban Meyer in this situation. Ain't a chance in hell that you lose a kid like that's in your backyard. Like in Columbus, they're not losing that kid. Right? They lost Drew Aller to Penn State, and he's an Ohio kid, but that's because Ewing is already committed, so they really, what were they going to do? But these big time programs don't lose players like that. And you just look at it. I mean, you look at Brian Young. Man, Notre Dame came a call, and there was no other option.
It was a wrap. I think he was thinking about Illinois. He was thinking about other Big Ten schools. And like you said,
Brian told me, he called me up. He said, "Hey man, I'm coming on my recruiting trip. Now I'm going to Notre Dame." I said, "Man, just come on, let's have a good time."
He told you that, huh?
Yeah, I'm going to Notre Dame. I said, yeah, but what? I mean, at that time, it was Notre Dame. It's still Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So you can't lose. You cannot lose kids that are within that 4 to 3 hour radius around your program, whatever it is. You just can't do it, and that can't be acceptable. And they've got to do whatever they can do to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
I'm sure that story, our brother JP, he tells me a story all the time. Adrian Peterson came on his visit and was like, "Yo, I'm going to Oklahoma. I'm just letting you know." Because JP was hosting him.
Yeah.
JP was like, "Let's go to South Beach. Let's kick it.
Yep.
Let's go hang out." Like, yeah, you cannot lose kids like that. And maybe a win over Ohio State, maybe it shifts things a little bit, maybe it changes things, but you missed the opportunity.
Yeah.
So now, USC, Clemson, 2 teams that you've beaten before, but go ahead, close it out, and just get better and evolve, and hope the new
thing with the whole recruiting. I mean, it's never over till it's over.
True.
I'd say that it's never over till it's over. So, but you got to have, and I don't know that he does or doesn't, but I do know that when I look at programs who have been able to stockpile talent, them dudes that are recruiting those assistants, they live and die with it. That's their life. They understand, this is what I got to do. I need the players. This is what they do. they're going to, when your head coach is your best recruiter, he can be your closer. And he's got to be able to be your closer. But your head coach can't be your best recruiter, I don't think, to be able to make sure that you are, because everybody needs to be recruiting at that level that your head coach and putting the time in that your head coach is putting in.
It's hard when your defensive coordinator doesn't recruit. It's
It's
hard.
But again, those are things that Marcus Freeman has to figure out, right?
Yeah.
As when he looks and he positions his staff, right? That okay, if he's not going to be a great recruiter, how do we supplement him? How do we support him,
right,
and put him in a position where he's going to be able to be a de facto closer? So it's a process, and it's a strategy to it all, to all of it. But unfortunately, it's a year to year because you're not making changes and changing philosophies in the middle of the season.
Our big brother Howard Griffith joined us today. Great conversation. The big game between Penn State, Ohio State, the CFB weekend.
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh, we covered Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame, hopefully running the table, and ending up with 2 losses on the season and winning a bowl game. It would be a step forward.
Yeah.
From last year, and like you said, going into next year, he will be the first Notre Dame head coach that does not have the pressure of having to be undefeated, especially starting next season on the road against Texas A&M. Which goes back to what you said. I don't think I want a first-time starter going into Texas A&M. And I know Notre Dame is going to be a talented team next year, but that transfer portal might be.
You got to figure it out. Figure out what's going to make your team the best, put you in the best spot. But I tell you this, Jack put him in. Hey, of all the deals, when you start talking about this 12-team expansion, I mean, it is a straight up layup for Notre Dame now. Not only that, but I think the importance of being able to have games on campuses is huge, right? And so we know what kind of revenue Notre Dame makes at home games. So.
A two-loss Notre Dame team is probably most years in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely.
If the schedule stays the way it is. Absolutely. Before we let you go, who comes out? You said you had Michigan. You think Michigan ends up coming out of this triangle in the Big Ten?
Yeah, I think right now they do. I just haven't seen, and obviously everyone's got to play each other, and that gets started this weekend. But right now they have fewer questions than the other two, and I think the way they're playing, the physical brand, the defense. I mean, even though you can get off to some great starts on them early, even if you can beat Indiana. Indiana got off to a fast start on them. But by the second, third, fourth quarter, that thing was over. They have, okay, well, here's what we go. Here's what we need to do.
That is real. I think I've watched the beginning of 3 Michigan games, and I turned away like, oh, Michigan is really struggling with these cats. And I'll turn back like 40 minutes later, like, yo, what happened?
Right.
Like.
It beat you in the submission. It beat you in the submission. So we're gonna find out. But it's who knows, man. But right now it looks like they are the cream of the Big Ten right now.
How do you see that round robin out west playing out? Let me tell you something, man. I watched Notre Dame games at least twice. I think I've watched that Washington-Oregon game 3 times. And if it comes back on tonight, I might watch it again. But that was a fantastic college football. Let me ask.
Yeah.
And Malik, I wish he was here because I said this. I said I didn't mind some of the 4th down calls by Dan Lanning.
Yeah.
I said what I called into question is that every time they went to 4th down, it was almost like they didn't trust Onyx to read the entire field. They always went to half field reads. And I'm like, usually, 4th down, you have a list of plays for 4th down and 2-point conversions.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, in the clutch, they want to give him like half field reads. Like, that's your guy. On the roster, it makes me question. Now I'm starting to think like, okay, wait a minute. What type of quarterback is he when we talk about transitioning to the NFL? Because if that's what you go to key moments, that's kind of sketchy.
Yeah, they expect things to happen quick, man. Bang bang plays, so you get them half the field. We should set this. This is what they've, their tendencies have been defensively to line up to this particular formation, and we always get a good look. But if you don't get that good look, then what? So that's part of it. But they playing a different game, man. That's all I know. They zinging that thing around, and shoo, it's some Big Ten coaches looking like, really, we got to play them.
Man,
I know they'll have new quarterbacks, but so that all that means is they're gonna get somebody out the transfer portal.
that's it. That's it. I laugh because I wanted Michael Penix at Notre Dame when he was in the portal. And fans are like, no. And I'm like, man, look, y'all don't understand. Yeah. Like, this kid, if he can do that at Indiana, this kid can go.
He just couldn't stay healthy.
That's it.
And I think that was a byproduct of him being asked to do so much. Because it just wasn't him. I think when we first started, I think his name was Kellen Lewis. Was the quarterback. Was talented.
Talented, yeah.
But it was like he was asked to do everything.
Yeah.
Antoine Randall asked to do everything. So, I think that's part of it that, you're exposed a little bit physically when you're asked to do all these different things. And now he's just asked to drop back and throw that thing around.
Lucky Lefty Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, audio edibles every day. We appreciate you. Courtesy of CFB Nation, presented by Twisted Tea. And of course, brought to you by ONORA Whiskey, ONORAWhiskey.com, that premium American whiskey, ONORAWhiskey.com. And if you drink, by all means, make sure that you do so responsibly. We thank our big brother, Howard Griffith, for joining us today. Howard, when you start the petition to get rid of Barry Lunny Jr., make sure I sign it. Okay?
Woo!
And whenever that NIL starts that collective for a feasible quarterback at ULI, let me know. Okay, bro?
Right,
let me know.
All right, bro. Have a great
I appreciate
weekend.
you, bro.
Yep.
All right. Don't forget, subscribe to us on YouTube. Hit the notification bell. Every time we go live, you'll know. Lucky Lefty Podcast, man. We spin it different. We appreciate everybody in the chat. Just an announcement. The super chat is back. So moving forward, if you guys want to send us a super sticker, a super chat, it has been enabled. And they got mad at us because we played a video off of somebody's Twitter feed. I finally got an answer and had to go through reapplying and all of that stuff. So super stickers back, chat is back, super chat is back. So man, we'll probably do another show. Left said he wants to do some type of show tomorrow, since we don't have to talk all Notre Dame, and we'll have some special guests. So we'll be posting that time a little bit later tonight. So great appreciation to you guys. Have a great, fabulous weekend. Continue to be blessed, Notre Dame fans. But most of all, you got to make sure that you spin it different.